I'll do what I can.
All right, let's get the meeting started. Cody, will you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
David?
A moment of silence for our first responders, our police force, our firemen, and for all those who are feeling the impact of the really tough something.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, as usual, this is a hybrid meeting. We'll have the Zoom public remain muted while the board or the people in the room comment or ask questions. Then we'll go to Zoom. Please raise your hand on Zoom if you have a question or comment. We did not have an executive session prior to this meeting, so that's off the books. And we'll take the emergency services reports. Chief Bernat. You want me to vote?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Chief.
Good
Good
evening.
evening. I'd like to start with the statistical report first. For the month of October, the police department handled 2,196 calls. Of that, 1,100 calls involved East Goshen Township. Year-to-date totals for all three townships is 19,175. Of that, 10,007 calls involved East Goshen. I'd like to, again, remind everybody to go to our website and visit all of the things that we have that are informational for residents. Knowledge is power, and seeing the trends that are occurring, particularly with our labs component, which allows you to drill down using the map and see what's going on in your area, is very helpful. This year, again, I want to encourage residents to support us in the three charities that we are involved in. The first one is Bluebeards for Charity. There are 4 charities that will benefit from this endeavor. The one is the Sambuco Children's Fund for an officer who died very early and left behind small children. A Child's Light, which is a support charity for children of domestic violence and sexual assault. And Unite for Her, which is a very powerful breast cancer support group. And lastly, the Chester County Crime Victims. We are lucky in this Chester County to have amazing support from a crime victim center that really does go all out to help people who find themselves the victim of crimes. They support through counseling, through support services as you attend court, et cetera. And we're very proud to support these charities. For our officers who do not want to grow beards or who cannot grow beards, you'll see us sporting pink badges during this fundraising effort. The second effort that we are very proud to support is Toys for Tots. It's wonderful to see that no children will go without toys over the holiday season. And the last one is One Warm Coat. For over 15, I believe 20 years, our business manager at WeGo has been running this charity where we collect new and gently used coats, scarves, et cetera. And she does this in honor of her sister-in-law who died very young from ALS. So I hope you'll help us get everything we need for all those people who need things in Chester County. Some of the trends I'd like to highlight for East Goshen for the month of October. Unfortunately, we were once again hit very hard by fraud investigations, but the good news is there were no check washing frauds this month. The frauds that we had range from identity theft, computer repair scam, bank scams, extortion scams, employment scams, and a new one that has hit us is individuals have found a way to steal people's airline miles. I'm not sure how they do that, but we're still investigating those. 23 disturbances in the township, which is unusually high, but there's no commonality among the crimes. We had 4 missing person investigations, 1 adult, 3 juveniles. All of them were located quickly. And good news is that the theft investigations for the township dropped down to only 3 for the month of October. 2 routine thefts and 1 theft from a motor vehicle. Before I get into the unusual crimes aspect, I'd like to remind everybody that we're getting into the holiday seasons, and there are 3 problems that we always see as the holidays approach us. Number 1, theft from mailboxes. Individuals mail cards, gift cards, money, etc. Please do not do it from your house. We recommend that you go to a post office to mail packages or even envelopes. The second one has to do with gifts. During the holiday season, many of our residents are generous and they want to put gifts out. For example, our trash collectors, traditionally every year in East Goshen, people will tape it to the underside of the trash can lid, and inevitably we have somebody who comes through and steals it. So please reach out to the vendor that you want to thank and see if there's another way that you can do it rather than taping or putting it in your mailbox or your mail carrier, et cetera. And the other trend is we're starting to see a pickup already is theft of packages. Anything we can do is recommend that you use a service or you have a neighbor who will keep an eye out for you, but we've already started to see Amazon packages disappear. With regard to the unusual crimes that we had in East Goshen in October, the first one was an indecent exposure investigation in the East Goshen Park. That individual was identified, charges were filed, and the individual has turned himself in. We had 2 aggravated assault investigations and arrests were made in both cases. We had 2 threat investigations where somebody threatened to harm another person. One was at East Goshen Elementary and one was at the YMCA daycare. Charges were not filed in either case, and we allowed both entities to handle it internally.
I'm going to interrupt and just ask, was it children that were involved in those
Yes.
situations? Thank you.
Yeah, they were. It's unfortunate, but there was no criminality. Sometimes children just say things. The next one we had was a stolen vehicle that fled from our officers. We deployed stop sticks, which flattened tires, and the individual continued to flee. They evaded all officers that were involved in the chase. The vehicle was later recovered and items from the interior were swabbed for DNA. We're hopeful that we will get leads that way. And lastly, we had a second motorcycle crash in East Goshen. This one was in October 5th. Between October 5th and September 19th, we had 2 fatal motorcycle crashes in East Goshen. We'd like to remind everyone to, especially with motorcycles, drive carefully. And our condolences go out to the families that were involved in both of those crashes. Are there any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks,
Okay,
Steve.
thank you.
Good Thanksgiving.
Goshen Fire. Chief Grant.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So for the month of October, we responded to 64 fire calls, 48 fire police calls, and 433 EMS calls. We had 30 fire calls in East Goshen, 17 fire police calls, and 198 EMS calls in the township. We had a couple serious incidents in the township. As Chief Bernat mentioned, we responded to the motorcycle accident. We also had a couple of elevator rescues at Wellington. They were having some issues with their elevators. We had an auto accident with entrapment on Boot Road in front of Wellington. And then on Friday, October 13th, we had our fire prevention open house. It was very well attended, great weather, a lot of families there. So that was a success for us. And for fundraising, we're in the 10th week of our 15-week club raffle, and our EMS
Yeah, your phone
subscription,
with
our EMS subscription drive letter should go out around Thanksgiving, and we ask everybody in the township to support us if they can. So, any questions?
you. Grant, do you have a question?
No, it's a-
Oh, I'm sorry. Grant, on the calls, the fire calls, were there any fires or were these unintentional smoke detector activation?
About 50% were the automatic fire alarms. The rest of the calls, we've had a little bit of an uptick in auto accidents, but no serious fires in our area in October. We had a kitchen fire in West Goshen that was out when we got there. We've had a couple of calls in the last week or so, but been focused mostly in Willistown.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Grant.
Derek, do you have the Malvern Fire Company?
There's nobody from Good Fellowship or Malvern here, Mr. Chairman, but the reports are available in the packet.
All right. So we have no public hearings. We'll take the financial report. Dave, are you ready?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As of October 31st, net of pass-throughs, the general fund had year-to-date revenues of $10,678,769, expenses of $9,647,978 for a positive net result, $1,030,799. And at the end of October 31st, general fund balance was $6,780,458. Our year-to-date revenue finished 5.6% or $566,000 over budget. Compared to the adopted budget, the shortfalls are in the real estate transfer tax collections, cable franchise fees, and those are all offset by EIT increased collections, interest income, a FEMA award from 2021, interfund operating transfers, Parks and Rec classes and summer programs, building permit fees, and increase in state pension aid. Our October year-to-date expenses are 0.9% or $83,000 over budget. Sewer and stormwater repairs, engineering services and recharges, Parks and Rec classes and summer programs are driving those year-to-date expenses versus budget. Our year-to-date revenue is nearly 12.5% ahead of 2022, and that's driven by our real estate property tax collections, interest earnings, and our interfund transfers. The year-to-date expenses are 9.1% higher than 2022. We have paving material, equipment rental, repairs, tree removal, public safety contributions, and insurance premiums as the primary drivers for the increase. Have all of the balances. Would anybody have any questions on year-to-date October?
Questions?
Couple, yeah, go ahead.
Year-to-date revenue, the fourth paragraph, Dave, expenses at 9.1%, revenue is ahead 12.3%. How, in dollars, how far ahead are we?
Versus 2022?
No, on the year.
On the year, we are just over $1 million in the positive.
$1,030,000,
No,
right?
versus-
As
yeah.
in the first paragraph then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why isn't, all right, well,
the fourth paragraph is actually comparing the year to 2022.
I see.
And the latest projection that I did has about $325,000 projected for this year's surplus.
That's what I was looking for. Thank
Yep.
you. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, a couple if I might.
Sure.
John, Dave, the capital reserve fund, what the 1.489 mil that was in expenses, but that may have been further down the road there, but what was that one about, that amount?
The total that's spent year to date.
Oh, that is year to date, excuse me. That's right, year to date. One I wanted to bring up with colleagues here, with fellow supervisors, a thought going forward and for the new supervisor, Peters here, but Barbara, when she comes on board, under the operating reserve fund, which if you don't understand that, you'll know what the operating reserve fund is about. But we've, of course, we haven't expended anything out of that. We're up to 1,600,000 plus. And we don't have a, unlike a fund balance policy, we don't have a specific upper limit to this except what's guided by the second-class township code.
Correct.
So we have latitude below that number. And I would suggest to my colleagues going forward that maybe the target for that fund is, starting each year, is 1.5 million, and the excess funds be targeted by the board to other funds that are active, if you will, like the capital reserve fund or the infrastructure sustainability fund. So those kind of are transferred, and you keep kind of a steady state at the beginning of the year for that particular fund, and use those additional funds, which would benefited this year because of the interest rate. So all of that additional amount is clearly interest that's accrued. So it's just a thought, and so I just wanted to share it with you tonight.
Interesting. We need a motion for that.
No.
Dave, the FEMA award from 2021, was that in the budget? Or was that a little bit of a surprise?
No, it was a surprise. We had been waiting on it and we were going back and forth for about 2 years, and they finally paid it out. It was about $93,000.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. And we did, just to tag on to what Mike had said, the board did, I believe it was last year, authorize the splitting of the operating reserve. We had nearly $3 million. We try and cap it at 25% of revenue, annual revenue, per the township, second-class township code. And we split that in half, basically, with starting the infrastructure sustainability fund. So it has been done before, and it is a good way to fund other funds.
Thanks, Dave.
Any other questions? Any questions from the floor? All right. Approval of minutes and treasurer's report.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we pass the minutes from the October 3rd and 17th meeting.
I just have a quick clarification, just from October 3rd meeting, Eric Meyer, Conservancy Board, was present. And then on page 3, line 42, his name is misspelled. There's an H at the end of Eric. That's all I had. Thanks.
And I had a couple of name corrections as well, but I already passed them to Jess. It might be helpful if we have people spell their name for her, just so there's clarification in the minutes.
All right, any questions or comments from the board?
Nope.
From the floor? Nothing on Zoom? I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Look at the treasurer's
Yeah,
report.
treasurer's report, October 12th to November 9th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the treasury report is for the weeks October 12th to November 9th, 2023. EIT Q3 Comcast franchise fees, earned interest, rent, vertical bridge payments, permit fees, escrow recharges, and real estate tax collections drove our general fund revenue during this period. Our general fund expenditures included the monthly WEGO contribution, traffic signal maintenance and repairs, vehicle maintenance and repairs to the Glenbrook Lane covered bridge. If you haven't seen it, it looks great.
Yeah,
Engineering charges. I'll see if we can get a picture of that, put up on the website.
I know Mark took one, but whether
has,
that's, yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Insurance,
We took a drive over there. and it
Oh,
looks
that's
really
right.
Terrific, yeah.
yeah.
insurance payments, tree removal, equipment rental, and other routine operational expenses. The capital reserve fund incurred $5,000 in necessary new workstations. Part of that was for security updates, as well as the HVAC system. The software wouldn't even run on the old machines. Infrastructure Sustainability Fund incurred $36,000 of expenses for Bowtree Pond rehabilitation work by Public Works Department. Once all of that Bowtree Pond is done, we will put in for the LSA grant reimbursement of $176,000, which we were approved for. And the ARPA fund incurred $2,000 in engineering charges for the Hershey Mill Sewer Estates project.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the receipts and approve the expenditures as presented in the expenditure register and summarized in the treasurer's report.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions about the treasurer's report?
Just a couple items, if I might, John.
Sure.
Page 3, don't necessarily have to go to it, folks. The district court expenses. Any thoughts, Dave, or Derek, relative to the expenses for the district court, versus the, rental lease, income? Are things balancing out there still? They holding their own with our lease, rental?
Not really.
So that'll be something that obviously it's on your radar going forward.
When's it,
Yeah, I think in 2026, 27, the lease is due.
So that's a ways down the road, but it's something.
It's still a ways,
Yeah.
but I found some notes from the prior finance director, and they were assuming that by this time it would be break even for all the repairs that were done initially, because we put in new carpet and stuff
Yeah.
a few years ago. And we're not there, and we just had to do HVAC. We had to remove a beehive this past year. I mean, it's,
Okay. All right. So you guys.
we're not getting enough.
You're cognizant of that. Then.
Yes.
Even though it's a couple years down the road to think about revisions. Just a note, a good example of how expensive it is to remove trees on page 8. Removing 3 diseased trees was $7,000. And then I had a question, page 9, under the, had to do with tennis and pickleball, instruction. That was a $7,000 expense. Is that a net zero based on the, revenue from the participants in that, that instruction?
Yes.
Okay. And, the one thing I'd ask is page 17, where you list the funds by number. They're not named. It's nice to have the
Oh, yeah, I
alpha-
forgot that.
alpha in. That's all right.
I'm gonna point out on page 9, just a little further down, the tree removal in the park, 4 ash trees in Marydale, $10,000.
Oh, I missed that one.
Missed that
Michelle.
one,
Let me
missed
see.
that one.
I missed that one.
Right in the middle.
I'm glad you pointed that out, because
Yeah, we've got multiple lines for tree removal.
I guess I have a question about that because I've had a couple trees removed from my property and none of them were $5,000 each. I'm trying to figure out.
Michelle, I missed that one too.
I mean, it's based on the
Glad you
size
pointed
of the
that out.
trees.
Gonna wonder, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good reference point for those that are listening, is that, some of these services we provide or require, so related to liability, et cetera. It really is a lot of costs.
Yeah, I mean, a rule of thumb, a lot of the big ones, typically you're looking at 3,000 to 3,500.
Close to $1,000 a foot when you start to get to 4 foot.
Yeah, the
diameter
danger that
plus.
comes in, and we're happy to have somebody else with cranes do it outside of Public Works, just for liability
Yeah.
reasons as well. But, yeah, it gets very expensive.
That's all I have.
Page 13, there's another 5 ash trees that removed on Eldridge for 2,500.
Yeah.
So
Punctuate.
this is very,
Yeah, punctuates.
it's very expensive. People have to understand that our cost for tree removal is just, it's increasing and it's never ending.
Yeah, some of it gets charged to sewer operating fund, as page 13, as you alluded to, because those are sewer right of ways. The other ones that could be in a neighborhood like Bow Tree or something, in a common space that is gonna hit somebody's house or something, that could be a typical general maintenance tree removal. And then the ones in the park are obviously the ones that are park maintenance.
That's important to point out. I mean, you can't see them all, but the Public Works particularly is very proactive as they can be, but there's a cost to try and.
We get a lot of calls.
Oh, and calls. kind of
Yeah,
precipitates some of this.
people
Good,
hanging out in their
good.
backyard, see them leaning towards it's pretty obvious when they're dead, and when
Yeah.
they see them kind of tilting, and a lot of our residents use as much of their property and some of our right of way as they can, so
I
they're
get it.
they're right in their way.
Well, I just thought I'd point out it.
Yeah.
was, and Michelle, thanks.
All right, any questions about that? We've had a motion and a vote. In favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Dave.
Old business, we have none. New business, We have a presentation by the Chester County 250 Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is related to, I don't know if the board remembers, but we passed a resolution earlier this year regarding the 250th anniversary of the founding of America, obviously. And Pennsylvania as a whole came up with a commission to commemorate these events and start the planning process for the next couple of years leading up to these events. So there's a Chester County branch of this commission. We have a couple gentlemen tonight that are here to speak on that. And specifically, what we're looking at is the blacksmith shop as a heritage site along a trail that is going to be in this area in a couple of years. So two gentlemen, Mark and Fred, I believe, they approached me, emailed me, and we had a conversation. And again, they think that the blacksmith shop is a good candidate for this type of heritage site, and they just wanted to gauge the board's temperature on if they would be interested in at least entertaining that idea. There's a couple of different things that need to happen in order to have a heritage site, so I will let them take over and explain accordingly.
Again.
Hey, thank you.
I have it electronic. I have it. Yeah, I can try to.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pull it up on the screen as well.
Do you mind if I talk in front of the board?
We'll
Hey,
maybe
you're
just
gonna
be
need-
microphone, sorry. for the Zoom
You
people.
can pull a microphone, I think, can you pull it out of the
You might be
sleeve?
Yeah, you- oh, no, well, it's-
How's that?
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Mark Slav. With me tonight is Fred Finesco.
Hey, Fran.
Fred and I are both on appointed members to the Chester County 250 Commission, which was commissioned by the Chester County Commissioners about a year and a half ago, and whose purpose is to celebrate our 250th coming up in about 3 years, but also to take our rich legacy we have here in Chester County, create various themes and work toward interpretation and promotion throughout the county of those themes. Fred and I are both on the Heritage Sites Legacy Committee. So we're charged with working on these various themes for the county. Specifically, we are working on the iron and steel theme, agricultural theme, and a path to freedom theme. Some of them overlap. And the fourth theme, and the one that is a priority and one which I'm going to speak to you about tonight, is the Philadelphia campaign. So the county had a heritage tourism plan done recently, hasn't been approved yet by the commissioners, but we've been working off of that plan. Specifically, the Philadelphia campaign encompasses the Battle of the Brandywine, Battle of the Clouds, which is here in your township, Paoli, and then it moves up to Yellow Springs and the northern tier of the county when Washington's troops went up and defended the furnaces up there. So it's all encompassing the Philadelphia campaign of quite a large part of the county. What the concept is that has been developed in this Heritage Tourism Plan is a tiered system of gateways, heritage centers, and interpretive sites. Now, the Philadelphia campaign has been given a priority to try to get done for the 250th. And it is a legacy project, as is these other themes, meaning it's not one and done. They will go on perpetually in the county. So relative to the Philadelphia campaign, I'll use the Brandywine Battle as the initial example. The Brandywine Battlefield Park is a designated gateway where tourists would come and get all the information available for the Battle of the Brandywine. They in turn would send tourists out as they wish on a guided tour, so to speak, to various heritage centers within the Battle of the Brandywine. Right now, we have two heritage centers, one in Kennett Square, and one at the Marshallton Village Heritage Center, some of which you may have even seen. We have 4 additional heritage centers, and those heritage centers will also include local interpretation of history and what local history for that specific area. So it's not, you're just going to find out about the Battle of the Brandywine, a specific area. For instance, Kennett Square Heritage Center interprets a path of freedom, the Underground Railroad, which is closely connected to all that. And even your township too overlaps with that particular theme. So that would be the second tier. And the third tier would be interpretive sites. So once a tourist would go to a particular heritage center, then they would be directed outward to specific heritage sites. So where the action actually happened. To use Brandywine Battlefield as an example, there's Birmingham Hill, which is the crux of the major fighting that happened there. So that would be an interpretive site. So I've explained the Battle of the Brandywine, but the Philadelphia campaign encompasses much more. So moving northward up into your township, we have, as I mentioned, the Battle of the Clouds. We feel that the your Goshenville blacksmith shop, which I almost consider that a heritage center as it is. You interpret the Battle of the Clouds there, you have blacksmithing. So from being a heritage center standpoint, you have the Quaker Meeting House. So you have different themes that can be interpreted. And obviously the Battle of the Clouds is would be a major interpretation as part of this broad spectrum of a tourist pathway throughout the county. We also have Paoli as a designated area for a heritage center. We have Yellow Springs, historic Yellow Springs. We have Warwick County Park, and we have the Jones Log Barn, Dupert Tie House in Tredyffrin Township. So moving northward, obviously from the Battle of the Brandywine, you would come here, Yellow Springs, Warwick, Dupert Tie House. We've also identified Valley Forge National Park as a gateway center too, and we're working with them on trying to create a gateway center to make it more open to the whole Philadelphia campaign. Right now, there isn't a whole lot of interpretation that's happening at Valley Forge relative to the Philadelphia campaign. So what we hope to do is to create these heritage sites and interpretive sites throughout the county and link them all up in a broad-based website, if you will, which is currently being developed. And you know, the concept involves more than just going out to the heritage centers, finding out about history. I'll use an example at the Marshallton Village Heritage Center. We interpret the Battle of the Brandywine there. We interpret the history of Marshallton, various local residents that are famous. Humphrey Marshall is one. Indiana is another. But we also promote local businesses. So we have a kiosk at the heritage site, which has a whole separate segment, which displays local businesses. We have maps that show off our preserves locally. And we would look to doing the same thing eventually at the blacksmith shop and the Goshenville blacksmith shop. And like I said, you guys are already there. You do a pretty good interpretation now. It's a great facility. One of the things that we are working on the various heritage sites and which Marshallton has, is a kiosk. Here's a picture of the Marshallton kiosk here. And this is what I was saying, where a tourist can go in. It's all interactive. They can push a button, get history, get various tourist locations, preserves. So it's promotion. So the Chester County 250 applied for a grant some time ago, and obviously grants, you're not sure if you're going to get it or not, but what I'm looking for tonight is your basic acceptance that we could move forward with the whole concept of creating this Heritage Center at the Goshenville Blacksmith Shop. Here again, we have grants we've applied for. We also have a funding committee within the 250, which is going to be raising funds for this. So we really are looking to create this whole network of heritage centers, interpretive sites throughout the county. And unless you could think of a better spot than the Goshenville Blacksmith Shop, I'd be willing to listen to that. Now, one of the things about heritage centers, an issue is staffing. Using yours as an example, I think, I forget your blacksmith there, but Gary, he's there.
And
Two-
Jessica,
He's there.
Gary and Jessica.
You're Jessica? Okay.
She's
So,
apprentice. She's his apprentice.
okay, fantastic. So anyway, you're open 2 days a week. So what's the point of having a heritage center if it's only open 2 days a week and you have tourists coming from all over? So one of the thoughts, and this is kind of like a second presentation now, and it's what I handed out to you tonight, is the whole idea of kiosks at heritage centers. So this came up fairly recently as a grant, and the grant is specifically for kiosks, outdoor kiosks. And currently, the grant needs to be put in at the end of the month, but everything needs to be done in about a week. So this is an opportunity. I don't want to sound like a high pressure sell here, but we would like to include East Goshen Township in the grant as a potential site for a kiosk within the grant. And I showed you a picture of the kiosk. That's an indoor kiosk. These kiosks are made to be outdoors, and there's a pretty good reason for that. And using your blacksmith shop as an example, is the information content that's available. When you have sites that are only open, say, 2 days a week or less, and you have tourists coming out, what good's the Heritage Center? So an outdoor kiosk would afford a tourist to get the information that's inside, come back if they wanted to, but then also go on to other heritage sites area. So from that standpoint, we feel the outdoor kiosk would be very beneficial. Not to say that it couldn't be indoors. You know, if it's outdoors, it could be certainly indoors too. And the picture I showed you of Marshallton was an indoor kiosk. So our grant involves 22 different sites throughout the county, and they're not specific to heritage centers, but they're obviously inclusive of heritage centers. They also include some of our county parks and our town centers, Westchester, Malvern, Coatesville, and we just feel that having that presence in the middle of our villages and towns, it's going to capture people's attention. And the whole idea is it's interconnected. People see it in the middle of town. You know, they're going to see, oh, if you go to Kennett Square and it's the middle of town, you're going to see, oh, there's a Kennett Heritage Center. I mean, some of these places are a little bit out of the way. I mean, your own blacksmith shop here, it's on a pretty well-traveled road, but, you know, the whole idea is, you know, promoting this to get people to understand our history. So what am I looking for here tonight? I gave you the handout, which I think explains it pretty well. What the requirements are, electric and internet. And I believe obviously you have electric at the blacksmith shop. I don't think you have internet. So that would be a requirement. I have a consent form tonight if you're so willing. Here again, it's due in about a week, but this grant is for the supply and installation of a kiosk, similar to the picture I showed you, working with the entity with what content they have as far as historical photographs, what they want to put on that. Basically, we're working with Miller Design, who have done Marshallton Heritage Center. They've also done at the Tourism Bureau down in Longwood. So they would work with, if you have, I don't think your historical commission is in effect now, but they would work with you to create whatever content you would, get it on the screen. And it would include 4 years of maintenance for that, obviously 4 years of maintenance, redoing the content, just making sure everything's operational. After that point, it would be on the township. However, with what we hope to accomplish with getting funds and all, we can't say what's going to happen within 4 years. So if you were so willing tonight, and this is really last minute, the whole grant was last minute. And coming before your board tonight was last minute because I knew you didn't have internet, which basically you weren't on the front list to begin with. There were 22 sites. One recently just dropped out. And I personally have always wanted your Goshenville blacksmith shop to be in on this. But as I said, since you didn't have internet, but here again, if the township would commit to getting internet on the site and signing this consent letter, and it is consent letter, you're not obliged to do anything. And here again, as the letter states, the grant wouldn't be awarded till next year. So there's a lot of time involved. There's a lot of thought involved. I just can't see how your site wouldn't be a great heritage center and benefit both the township and residents and promote the interpretation of the rich history that we have in the county here. I can leave a copy. So that's a copy of the consent form, and I'm sorry. I have plenty.
Oh, good. Can you do one more?
Yes, I can. So frankly, if this were of interest to you, we have to get, and this, by the way, this consent letter is going to be submitted for all the 22 proposed sites that we have. So we've been really working hard to put this whole thing together. And November 20th is the due date. So this consent letter would be turned in with our application for the grant. I will say this, there are other sites that could fill this void. I'm giving you the first opportunity tonight. If you're so interested, I'm not looking for an answer tonight, but if there was a true interest in doing this, if it could be communicated to me within a few days, whether we get the consent form at that point or not, that would be great. That's my presentation. Are there questions, comments?
The request tonight is basically to,
Include us on the grant.
to include us in the grant for the kiosk, right?
Well, two things. Number one is an affirmation that your Goshenville blacksmith shop could be a heritage center. So that's one. I mean, if that's a negative response, then there's no use in going through this. If that's a positive response, then the second is this kiosk, which, frankly, it's non-obligational. And, if we get it, you get a kiosk. But we do need internet service supplied by the township, which shouldn't be a big deal. I did talk to Gary. He didn't think that would be a big deal. But it's a ways off, but all these things take a lot of time, as you know.
That leads to my question about heritage centers necessary improvements with regard to things like parking and ADA compliant restrooms and things like that.
Yes, that's a good question. So all of the heritage centers, well, a heritage center does have certain qualifications. And as you said, parking, restrooms, ADA requirements are all issues that are looked at on an individual basis. Your site seems to qualify pretty well for all of the above. I think you have ADA, you have parking, electric. So it's a natural, really. I mean, your site is probably one of the easiest to go through the process. But,
I'll comment.
as I said, creating the heritage sites is a legacy project, and we're hoping that we're going to get funding available, maybe grants, but work through this on a county basis.
I'll comment that I'm supportive of it. My older brother is actually a historical interpreter and a blacksmith. Unfortunately, he lives in Albany, New York. So he can't come down and do sessions here, but maybe he'll train me. We could do that. So I'm supportive of this. And my thought is that it may regenerate our historic commission, who has been dormant for about a year. And this would certainly give them something to get their teeth into and could take over the responsibility for things like the interpretive content and installation of additional interpretive content.
Yeah, that would be great if there was an entity that could supply information.
Yeah.
But, here again, your township overlaps with various themes. I mean, underground railroads throughout, agriculture. So that's what a heritage center is all about. But
So I have a couple of questions. So 4 years of maintenance and updates are included for these kiosks, and then
Yes.
it's on us. What happens if we decide at that time we're not going to maintain it and we decide to remove ourselves from this heritage trail?
I don't know if I can accurately answer that, other than to say that you're not under a contractual agreement. So the kiosks are made to be removable and could certainly be repurposed to another site.
Okay. What kind of traffic would we be looking at? Is this something that you can give us an idea of how much traffic this would generate? 'Cause I know that I want to see thousands of cars
Right.
coming into that parking lot, quite frankly, on an annual basis,
Right,
because it's not really meant for that kind of traffic.
right.
Plus, there's no traffic light there. I mean, there are so many other historical components to our township, like I said, with the Underground Railroad and just up the street and right on Sugartown Road, there's Sugartown. There's that little town there in Willstown that's an historic.
The village of
town.
Sugartown, yeah.
Town. There's so much stuff that we have local to us, and it's known that the troops actually marched down what's considered Paley Pike now. Um,
Well, they marched
toward, right down the,
down
right down
where the
Pelly Pike
blacksmith shop.
toward the Battle of the Clouds.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of history here, but I just don't know that, I'd want to know a little bit more about the traffic. I don't know that I want to necessarily bring people into that particular part of our township because there's really nothing there that would capture them and
Well,
keep them interested in the township.
that's certainly a point. I can just give you some historical background from my own experience. And I created the Marston Village Heritage Center. And it's right between the Marshallton Inn and the Four Dog Tavern. So it is a high traffic area. There is parking and whatnot. And creating that, there was concern that, oh, are you going to be bringing in buses and this and that? It's never really happened. I mean, I can't comment on the additional traffic that might have been created because of the Heritage Center. But it's so, I mean, the process is so spread out where, people would go to the gateway and then go out to the various heritage centers. We just want to renew interest in our history and heritage, and
I understand.
we've really lost it. I
understand.
personally don't think it's an issue at all. It would be intermediate, not like, and certainly it could be restricted too. I mean, we'd say, well, are you going to bring buses of people in?
Yeah,
What
I
else?
don't think so. And the other thing is I'm concerned that there's an elementary school just 50 yards away. So that's another concern that I have because we do have, that's school traffic. So it's a really high traffic area right there. So I have, I'm just expressing my concerns.
Yeah,
I have some issues. I'm not quite sure where I stand on this at this point.
Sure, I understand. I mean, having the school there is great. I mean, one of the things is, education is part of this whole Chester County 250. And we do need to educate our younger people in our rich heritage.
I'm not worried about the education component. I'm worried about the safety component with our children. That's all.
Mark, I got a quick question for you. Thanks for coming tonight. Thanks for considering East Goshen. My question for you is hypothetically at the end of this 4 years that the funding, if you get the grant, will continue to cover, what will the costs be hypothetically if you wanted to continue the?
So it's budgeted 2,000 a year.
I'm supportive of this.
Well, I like it, but I'd like to know what it would cost to make the necessary improvements
Yeah.
before we jump into it. What,
Well, are you talking about the Heritage Center concept itself or specifically the kiosk? Because
neither one. What I'm talking about is the internet, the interactive part of it.
so
Can we do that? I'm not really asking you. I'm asking Derek and Dave. Can we do that?
can we do internet?
Run the internet?
Oh,
there,
okay.
yeah. So this kiosk can be on the internet.
Yeah, and can we make sure that we're actually ADA compliant and are there any fire issues that we have to be concerned about as well?
So just,
That's to my manager, I'm.
so the internet is a requirement for the kiosk.
Yeah, we have
Kiosk
that.
would be outside, so there wouldn't be any ADA requirements for that. But in the overall scope of things, if that's going to be a heritage center, then, you're going to have a kiosk, people are going to go to the kiosk, but on days that are open. So yes, they are intertwined, certainly, yes.
I understand
You
that.
can install internet there. I wouldn't have a cost off the top of my head right now, but
Right.
you can install internet there.
Yeah, we can install. It's just a matter of how much would it cost for us and
I mean, I'd have
maybe
to.
we
yeah,
have to go
contact
further with
Elk
that,
Mountain
yeah.
and see.
Mark, I had
Do
one more quick question for you. I think we currently sell stuff in the black shop,
Mhm.
blacksmith shop right now. Or would we still be able to continue that?
Oh, absolutely.
So another way we could generate revenue with additional traffic to offset other costs.
So just to give you an example, the Marshall Village Heritage Center, and we have two monitors. We have an outside monitor and inside monitor. We sell advertising over our outside monitor to help cover our costs.
And you have people who pay for it? You have advertisers?
We have at least 18 advertisers at $250 a year. Basically, it covers our cost
Yeah, that's what-
is what it does. And, there's enough small business in the town. It's all supporting everybody is what it is.
Yeah, we have
But
about,
you gotta work too.
What do you need from us tonight?
So, I don't need anything specific tonight. I would, is it safe to,
Would disagree with that a little bit. because
Okay.
We're all here.
Yeah,
and If there's a
all right.
majority that's okay with it, I would like a motion that they would be okay with, signing the consent form. So I guess I would, because this is the last time we meet. before you
okay,
guys-
so yes, then let me rephrase that then. The two components would be number one, the affirmation that a proposed heritage center could go at the Goshenville Blacksmith Shop. The second would be the consent form, in which if the majority were in favor, then, I mean, I can hook up with you and I'd like to see your insignia across the top here. If we were to turn this in, that's what we're asking.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion in light of our general interest in having the blacksmith shop be a heritage center in East Goshen Township.
Authorize the township managers.
That we should, as a condition of that, we need to provide a kiosk. And I would make a motion that we sign the letter of intent pending the grant.
Authorizing the township
Authorizing
managers
the
to
township
sign.
manager to sign that.
Thank you. I'll second that motion.
And as far as the cost of internet, my understanding is that, it'd be similar to what you put in your house. You buy a unit and you pay $40 a month to have
Mhm.
internet.
I guess
So,
I was talking about just initial installation. I don't think that would be crazy either,
Okay.
David, but that's
Yeah.
kind of where my
I
mind.
don't think it's a lot of money. So. That's kind of my mushy motion there to convert that into a more formal list.
Well, We got a mushy second here.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question, this regarding this grant. This is not something that we have to apply for. This is
No.
not something that we're going to have to have staff spend time on.
No,
Okay, thank
the
you.
grant is being applied through the application is through the Chester County Planning Commission.
Okay, good answer. Any other questions from the board? How about from the room here? Or step up to the mic.
Oh, you'll have to hand over the mic.
Actually,
Welcome.
All right, Ken Flanagan, East Goshen. Based on experience in running other projects, let me say I'm kind of intrigued by the idea, but your costs are going to be greater than you think. These things as outdoor kiosks do not weather well. They're better in some sort of a sheltered protection. To consider that, there's additional maintenance. There'll be unforeseen aspects to this. So what may initially be, perceived as, hey, we're given a kiosk, think of it bigger, that there may be a structure over it to protect it from the weather. Because quite frankly, in 1 year outdoors, it's not going to be too attractive.
I was actually
that
envisioning
aspect.
a shelter over it, and I think it'd be a great Eagle Scout project.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that, but I think we're bigger.
The
Yeah.
kiosk.
We're in for
itself,
more than
David?
just a kiosk.
Yeah, no, you're
Okay.
right. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Reply to that?
Sir.
We don't want to get into a debate here.
No, but an outdoor covering was looked at. We want to get the most bang for our money to get the most kiosks out. And your recommendation is exactly what we said. There are 4 years of coverage for maintenance. As Michelle had mentioned, if you want to drop out after that, maybe it's not working for you. Certainly that's an option.
All right, well, are there any other questions? Right, then I'll call the question, all in favor? Anyone against? 5-0 then. Thank you.
I'll email you tomorrow. I will email you tomorrow.
Ken, thanks, is it Martin? No, it's
Mark.
Mark and Fred. And Fred,
Mark and
thanks for your
Fred.
investment, your knowledge base, what you've done for this, to keep the history alive. I think that's really, really commendable to spend the time that you have.
Yes, and I don't know if you noticed it, Mike, but that was the same kiosk, the same model kiosk that George Washington used in the original
right.
battle.
That's exactly right.
You know, John, that sounds like something I would say.
That's
I
exactly
think I
right.
have rubbed off on you, John.
You have rubbed me too much, too much.
Oh,
All right,
oh, that's
fine.
not good. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, who's going to do the review of proposed carbon dioxide pipeline ordinance?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do have Jerry Sexton here from the Pipeline Task Force Chairman. This is something they've been working on for a few months here. I will let him explain it as he's going to be able to explain it better than I will. David is also here as the liaison of the Pipeline Task Force. But essentially, we're looking at an ordinance because there is these new type of technology regarding blue hydrogen and carbon dioxide output of this new technology. And it's just a proposed ordinance in order to protect the township a little bit more against this new technology.
As a preamble, I would like to comment, although somewhat self-serving as I am the liaison to the Pipeline Task Force, that the really great job that the task force has done to put this information together.
Absolutely.
It's really great information about what's going on locally and also in the country with these projects, number one. Number two, you may be aware, since last time we met and talked about blue hydrogen, that Pennsylvania has gotten $750 million of funding for 2 hubs, with the support of our governor and much to my chagrin. So that and kind of an update on recent developments. One of the carbon capture pipeline companies just pulled out of Iowa because they were going to be required to obtain easements through farmland and through other densely populated areas, and they determined that getting easements would be too difficult and expensive and might require eminent domain. So, Jerry.
Okay, that's a good introduction to this situation. As you mentioned, there's a lot of money involved here, and how that money is allocated and what the pipeline operators are allowed to use it for will determine whether or not the technology implemented would result in the need for carbon dioxide pipelines to capture the carbon dioxide. Okay. So the common term used is blue hydrogen. What that means is that hydrogen is created from methane. Methane is sourced from fracking. That piece of the technology equation is actually well established. That technology is proven that can be done. The second part that is still under development is the carbon capture piece of it. Regardless of how it's to be done, if it is to be done, large, extensive pipeline systems will be required to do it. And the pipeline systems that go through our township and others are being looked at as prime candidates to move this huge amount of carbon dioxide that will be generated. The government proposals initially talk about green hydrogen, which would not generate carbon dioxide. That hydrogen is sourced from the electrolysis of water, which creates hydrogen and oxygen, which are, not the problem we're dealing with here. That technology at scale is not going to happen in the near future. That's a little ways off, maybe a long ways off. But blue hydrogen can happen relatively soon. I think it's in the best interest of the township that we be prepared for that to happen. If the numbers work right for a large gas company like Energy Transfer or some of the others, and they can make a profit through the, it's called steam reformation of methane. Now, they already have the methane, they get that through fracking. You know, that's a big established piece right now. This just adds to it. It's something that they're good at. If the profit incentive is there, they will want to move quickly to implement carbon dioxide capture. And by that, what that really means is, at this point, the only practical way to capture carbon dioxide is basically to pump it into the ground. There are other methodologies and technologies that are being looked at. The task force and myself have done a lot of research and reading into that, but that's kind of like at laboratory and pilot plant scale right now. That's not ready for industrial application. Carbon dioxide capture through geologic sequestering happens now. It will need to happen at a volume that would be orders of magnitude bigger than what occurs now. And the only way to do that is you need large diameter pipelines to do that. And we got them in East Goshen Township, and they're in the right spot too. You know, the hydrogen hubs would probably be located down, the one in our area would probably be located down in the Marcus Hook area. They will need to find, the gas companies need to find a way to move that carbon dioxide to various places in the state. And, you know, they're going to want to take advantage of infrastructure that's already in place.
And if they can't use current infrastructure, in the last sentence in paragraph 8, and one of the things I read about Mach 2 said that they would seek to use existing easements to put additional pipelines in the ground. So this is an attempt to be preemptive. We learned our lesson, and by the way, Energy Transfer is one of the partners at Mach 2. We learned our lesson with Energy Transfer, and I think we need to be preemptive. So what the task force is asking tonight is to refer the information and the draft ordinance to our solicitor to do some research. The issue is that right now, blue hydrogen is not a public utility. So all of the oil and gas laws that preempt the townships from doing anything don't apply, we don't think, to carbon capture pipelines. And we'd like to kind of confirm that. History has shown in Iowa and South Dakota that one state said that, in fact, local government is not preempted, and the other said it's not preempted, but it's implied that it should be preempted. So we don't know, how Pennsylvania would go, but right now it looks like a preemptive standalone carbon pipeline ordinance would be in order for East Goshen Township.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
The research that we have done so far indicates that there's nothing from a legal standpoint to stop East Goshen Township from implementing this ordinance. Okay. Having said that, we are not lawyers or attorneys, but we have researched this as best we could. The recommendation for the thorough legal review is verify our work, but also to prepare your defense. And by that, I mean, if it is economically feasible for a large gas company to implement a blue hydrogen production facility and the need for carbon capture, which I think they will go hand in hand. I have read some opinions about phased approach where they would be allowed to implement the manufacture of hydrogen without the carbon capture and implement carbon capture later when the technology catches up. But that really goes against what the Biden administration at least is is trying to propose here. I think that, back to the defense standpoint or the defense viewpoint here, that is where the work would need to occur, to be ready to defend an aggressive legal challenge by a large pipeline operator who would interpret an ordinance in this township or any other as an obstacle in their way towards immediate profit.
Let me comment on that. The township has already done this once with our pipeline saturation ordinance.
Right.
And we based that on the state constitution and no other preemptive laws and ordinances of the state. We've already done this once with that ordinance. So you can anticipate that the 2 weeks after we filed our pipeline saturation ordinance, we got a letter from Dwayne Morris in Harrisburg telling us that it was not permitted under the Constitution, and we'll see you in court. So we've already done this once, and
Which is that's exactly what you would expect them to say,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Go ahead.
Jerry, what regulatory body or agency in Pennsylvania then, since we don't have a pipeline oversight agency like most of the other states, and we have the PUC, and we know what Energy Transfer did with gaining status as a utility, I would think they would do the same thing here down the road, and then it comes into the court of the PUC, or what other regulatory body would this go through?
Well, that's the thing.
could argue that this could never be a utility because it's carbon capture.
Right.
There's no use for it. So what they argued with the pipelines is that it's methane, propane, it's going to help us with our cookouts and heating our homes. It's a true utility. In this case, there's no utility to carbon monoxide other than when it leaks. It'll kill you.
That may be the case presently, but with the emphasis on future aspects of energy management, and that clearly it's got to be a tea leaf somewhere that is saying that that's going to eventually be within the court somewhere, the court of governance by the PUC or someone else. And I just wonder, I certainly am supportive of this approach, and particularly to have the residents aware of as we're sharing this now, and as the pipeline task force is done. But I just wonder about that relative to who is going to be in charge of this at such a time.
At this point, no one really. That's the problem, but it's also part of your opportunity here by moving with urgency and getting an ordinance on the township's books. You set precedent, for your own area that you can govern.
Now, the one thing I picked up from the brief that you put together, the pipeline task force, Jerry, relative to, I think you said it was I was thinking North Dakota, but South Dakota, and the way they said the state would allow the local jurisdictions to craft regulations. And here is the key word, that are reasonable. And boy, oh boy, will that get parsed out. So no matter what we put down, that will be parsed out. Obviously no different than the saturation word, which.
And I think that we gave this or we approached this from a reasonable standpoint.
Right.
Okay. A lot of thought went into this. The values that are in there for the setbacks, we believe are reasonable numbers to put in. And if they were implemented and a pipeline was installed here or any other place with those kind of setbacks, all right, which, are large, but they need to be based upon what we're dealing with here. That would be a safe operation. Okay. We didn't set the setbacks at 50 miles.
Right.
Okay. On the other hand, a gas company is going to want to set the setback at 50 feet. Okay. You see what I mean? So I think we've
tried to use something that makes sense in here.
Were there reference points from any jurisdictions in South Dakota that
Some-
they started this process that you were?
Yeah, ours is more based upon what science and engineering is out there to tap into. You know, I have to say, and I have read about this, it is extremely difficult to model a carbon dioxide leak and spill. Okay. It's difficult to predict where it's going to go, but they do know that under these pressures, and these pipelines run typically at like 1,900 pounds per square inch pressure. Okay. A small leak in a pipeline, and there's engineering to show this, develops into a large rupture of the pipeline. A huge amount of gas is released and it travels a long way before it is dissolved or the concentration is low enough that it dissipates to the point where it is no longer a health hazard.
Well, I have a couple of questions regarding that, and I'm glad that Grant's still here because there are a couple things there's only one thing that I see in this that was not considered, and that was adding, Mark, I want to make sure that we add high consequence facilities. Because it says, it enumerates so many different things, but all along Westchester Pike, we have apartments, condos, and we need to make sure that those residents are captured in this as well. So I've actually talked to Jenny Kerslake, and she's going to be getting back to me on helping with a little bit of the verbiage for that.
I'm okay with that. I
So,
mean,
so she and I talked. I think that component has to be added, but Grant, I'd really like to have you speak to carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide situations. Could you possibly come up and give us an idea of how you would handle this as an emergency responder? Because you're going to be your first responder. How are you going to handle something like this that's invisible?
It may not even be in the county hazard mitigation plan at this
Yeah.
point in time, because it's brand new.
This
Grant,
is-
is that where you're gonna start?
Yeah, it's absolutely brand new to us.
Yeah,
You know,
How do you handle it when you go into a house that has a backup? Of carbon
so
monoxide?
we have all of our meters, we test as we go and, you know, yeah, so we start off initially, we have self-contained breathing apparatus,
Right,
and our meters and we're testing immediately and 9 times out of 10, there's no, you know, it's a problem with the detector, but,
okay,
carbon dioxide, is an asphyxiant. So in a confined space, you know, it deprives any people in there of oxygen.
so is there any kind of a meter that you're aware of that we can require a company to install? Can we put that in our ordinance?
Yes,
Sorry. I was just reading so much stuff, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So this is something that you can handle, but on a large scale, how would you handle it?
so if it's, well, you know, if it's in open air, it's less of an issue. It disperses pretty quickly.
Does the county have large fans that they can, like, like in all seriousness, like, do they have a jet engine type of fan that can actually dissipate it very quickly?
No, the idea, if it's leaking outdoors is just to isolate the area until it's dissipated.
Okay,
You know,
Gary, you want to talk about
thank you.
how,
Thanks, Grant.
when a rupture occurs, a lot of times it's just not a single location rupture, like natural gas liquids, like we're talking about, you know, you have a small rupture and it auto refrigerates and goes. A lot of times with carbon dioxide, because it's a super critical
Fluid.
fuel, or not fuel, but
Fluid.
material, splits the pipeline
Right.
vertically.
Nice.
So you can have these huge.
So I've read about that. I've seen pictures of it. It's called running ductile fracture. The reason carbon dioxide pipelines are susceptible to this is because of the material going through it and the fact that it's at such high pressure. Okay, so what happens is a small leak basically rips the pipeline longitudinally like this, opens it up, and there's no way to control that. Okay, They can shut off valves, but you have miles between those shut off valves.
And the
You're-
reason I asked the question is a small leak,
Becomes a huge,
a huge leak and,
A huge
and
leak.
fans and normal emergency response stuff isn't real effective.
so this is a completely different scenario than when first responders have to go into a building because of carbon monoxide. They both, have the same problems. They are asphyxiants. People stop
These are
breathing.
not combustible, are they?
No, carbon dioxide, the only thing, we have going for it, it's not flammable, but it is explosive in that manner that, David mentioned.
Yeah.
A weakness occurs in the pipeline and then, it's gone.
1.5 times heavier than air. So again, it doesn't
Just stay
dissipate
low.
like methane would. It floats and fills spaces and is an asphyxiant. So
And that's why it's hard to model. People have tried, what would happen if a pipeline did rupture? Like, where would it go? Well, it really depends upon the topography, the weather conditions, where the wind is blowing, that kind of thing.
All right.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion here to authorize the solicitor to review the ordinance language drafted by the pipeline task force regarding hydrogen and carbon dioxide.
Second,
All right, the motion is made and seconded. Anybody in the room want to make a comment or ask?
did you have any questions, Cody?
Yeah, I one quick question, Mr. Chair.
Well,
Sorry.
Sure.
I didn't find in here, maybe you've already talked about it. Are there any other surrounding townships that passed this? Are we going to be,
I think we would be the
Once
first
once-
in this part of the country.
okay, once we pass it, do you anticipate the task force speaking to other townships to try and get it? So it's like a whole line that they're.
I
okay.
think that if
Jimmy
there's
starts talking about it.
success
figured.
here in East Goshen,
Generate interest, there's no.
I
doubt.
talked to Carolyn Committed today. Carolyn is chair of the ER&E, the Environmental Resources and Energy Committee in the Senate. She's also on the Pipeline Caucus. Her staff person, Michael, suggested that we talk to several other townships that would be interested. They don't have a pipeline task force, but they'd be very interested in the work that we're doing. So that's.
I just figure it may scare a big company if it's not just East Goshen, but if there's a bunch of townships around in support. So thank you for your
I
work.
don't know about scare them, but it
Yeah.
would,
Well, another hurdle.
yeah. Okay. Any other questions for me? Well, no, you need to take a vote, don't you?
No,
Yes, we do.
need to get the public,
What?
we need to get public things.
I asked if there were any questions in the room. I didn't get any questions, and I don't see a hand up on Zoom, so we are ready.
Okay.
The question has been called. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Thank you very much
Thank
for your
you,
work. on
Jerry.
that.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah.
And
All members, right, fair.
sure, we'll do. If you have any other questions, things come up, please reach out to me. We will do our best to answer. Just as a parting comment, I would recommend trying to move this along. Because like I said, if the funding works out, Big Gas is going to be wanting to do this quick. There's a lot of profit to be made here for them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your work.
Thanks a lot.
All right, we're on to the proposed 2024 preliminary budget.
Oh, boy.
And Dave, are you up here?
Yes, sir.
May I ask a procedural question on the budget before Dave makes his presentation?
Yeah.
Certainly.
And with our solicitor here, with Mark. And Michelle and I talked about this earlier today in the conversation. And I asked whether or not, knowing the second-class township code, for if we take action tonight to authorize advertisement for public comment. The public comment period, Mark, is still 20 days, correct? And so would it be possible that if we do act on this tonight, that it looks like if our meeting is December 5th, that we have just enough days to consider action on the final budget on the 5th of December? And I asked that as I shared it with Michelle earlier. I'd like to get it done personally as I exit. And so I don't know whether logistically, legally, I think we can squeeze in I know you can send them digitally, the advertisement tomorrow and get it in, and we're right there, I think it goes through the 4th. And maybe even to the 5th. Mark, what do you think? It's, I counted the days,
So I think we have it. You have to have a notice, right?
oh, yeah, oh, it's available for review and that 20-day period.
If we put it in tomorrow, and the first day is the 16th, it would be right, the 5th would be the day. It
Yeah.
would be the 25th.
Is that acceptable, Mark? Can you answer that?
Just look at the calendar.
You don't want to spend an extra meeting with us, Mike?
I would prefer to make an Irish exit.
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, you can make it available on the website. Sorry.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tonight, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to see if we could get that one out there and see where we go tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion, then we can open for discussion. So, Mr. Chair, I move authorize an advertisement of the 2024 preliminary budget in the daily local news and on our website for all funds, as well as copies of the proposed budget at the East Goshen Township Building, so that it may be available for public inspection.
All right, Dave, what do you want to do here?
I really just wanted to highlight, I mean, we've been working on this pretty much since the long range plan in May and June. Spent conversations on the phone and individually in the office with supervisors, going through line by line or in general as they see fit. I really just did a summary of here are all the revenue and expense changes in the general fund, and here are the ones in all other funds that primarily changed. So starting in the proposed revenue for the general fund budget, the biggest item is there's ongoing negotiations, yes, with Thornberry and WeGo, whether or not they will sign a contract for the foreseeable future for services. In order not to have to go out to re-advertise and to make sure that we could fund it by ourselves, the proposal that Derek and I came to was to use an interfund operating transfer of balance from our existing general fund dollars to cover any shortfall. And we can revise this for the final budget and not have to go out for advertising if Thornberry does sign a contract. So that's the biggest change. I have interest income that was approved. Pension state aid revenue came in higher, so I believe that'll be higher again next year. Permit fee revenue was agreed to with everyone. The liquid fuel interest, and then the county real estate processing fees is a negative, as well as revising cable franchise fees down. Offsetting that increase in revenue primarily from the interfund operating transfer is the increased WeGo costs. Putting Goshen Fire contribution at 10% increase versus 2023. Final staff salaries that were reviewed by the board. New SPCA contract increases. That's a guesstimate based on the contract language. The futurist bow tree connection survey requests, and then offsetting these increases in expense would be reductions in paving materials, stormwater equipment rental, paving rental, general tree removal at the park, general expense at the shop, eliminating all third-party inspectors, having additional assistance from the zoning department, reduction in township building fuel, light and water, reduction in maintenance and repairs, reduced communication expense with our new IT vendor, EIT commission a little bit lower. We've got reductions to minor equipment purchase, shop tools, the legal zoning hearing board, park utilities, satellite park improvements, I'm saying that we would use the infrastructure fund instead. Small decrease in public works supporting community day and the reduction of $2,000 for ABC budgets. That would get us back to a net zero general fund budget for 2024.
All right.
May-
No, no, I want to go first. Pardon me, Mike. Dave, you mentioned the WeGo negotiations, and I thought we'd ask Michelle to just make a comment, since she's the police commissioner, and on that negotiation, just about where it stands. So everybody in the township at least has access to this information because it is significant.
So, for the past 25 years, Thornbury Township, Chester County has contracted services through WeGo. And there have been a number of contracts that they've done that are like 4 or 5 year contracts at one time. And we're currently negotiating with Thornbury. There's been some back and forth. There are a lot of delays. We've been very transparent with how we arrived at our ask, and we're just now waiting for Thornbury to decide if they're going to contract with WeGo or not. So if they don't, we're going to have a budget shortfall of the amount of money that they would have been paying us. And so we need to have a plan set in place to cover any of those losses.
Because the current contract ends December 31st.
Thank you very much.
2023.
Ends December 31st. So if they choose to go in a different direction, whether they were to choose the state police route or another neighboring, connecting neighboring township, or not connecting neighboring township, they would have to, they'd have to be working on that right now. So at this point, we don't know where we stand. We're waiting for them to return our offer that we extended to them a couple of weeks ago. And we haven't heard anything from them except that they haven't yet decided. So hopefully that will be determined maybe tonight at their meeting.
Thank you. That's the reason that the first line here says interfund operating transfer. In the event that we can't make a deal with Thornbury, we will have to fill that hole in the budget, if you will. All right, Mike, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
That's related, John. I was, with what we've heard from Dave as our Director of Finance, I didn't hear it tonight. We didn't ask the question, but in the prior month or two, we've asked as to how this year end may finalize in the general fund budget. And at a point, you were still in the vicinity of perhaps as much as $400,000 or $500,000. Is that possible still in a surplus?
I think we're probably looking between 300,000 to 400,000.
Okay, and so if that were the case in the prior years, recent prior years, we have distributed those surpluses to some of the other funds which are needed in the capital, sustainability, what have you. In this case, if we had the surplus, it could close that gap in our general fund balance pretty neatly and take the pressure off in 24 such that it would give the partners, both East Goshen and Westtown, time to digest that reduced revenue within the organization and operation of the WeGo department itself. Is that a fair thing?
Yes.
Yep. Thank you. Dave, what other points do you want to make about this preliminary budget?
Nothing really else for the general fund. If anybody has on the board any questions and the public any questions in general or specifically detail. I do want to point out from some highlights from the letter that Derek and I did that there is no millage increase for 2024. It looks like COLA is going to be at the cost of living increase. That should be about 3.2% starting December 29th. Even with a 3.2% increase, our 2024 projected budget, if you exclude all public safety costs, will be at 1.6% or $117,000 higher than our approved 2023 budget.
That's good. Now what is it? What is it with the emergency services?
Well, we'll have to see what the final WEGO budget is, but it's about 7.5%.
7.5%. Yeah, oh. All right. At least you had the answers. Anybody else on the board have a question?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to ask about the Futurist Bow Tree Connection Surveys for $15,000. So what does that entail? What is that supposed to be? Is that something that we're saying, go survey the land? Are we saying, what are we saying
It would be
here?
using engineering services and basically to survey, to get any testing done for the area at where they were considering a bridge to be put across from Bow Tree to the blacksmith shop. What kind of span that would have to be and where it would be located. Also more extensive studies done on 352, investigating the possibility of whether it has to be widened there, where we have a little bit has been kind of pilloried off, but I don't know the PennDOT would go for something that wasn't much more sturdy to protect pedestrians and bike
Right.
traffic.
Right.
And it kind of is a larger question as well with the traffic coming from New Kent. I mean, I go down there all the time and people walk over to Bow Tree because it's a great place to walk. So you've got a lot of traffic there. There's a stoplight that has a crosswalk at the triangle point, but
So is this
you could get killed
15,000?
there.
Is this $15,000 set aside for the Futurist Committee to use?
It came down to $13,666.67.
So there are two people on that committee,
Yes,
and they are responsible for $13,333 of other people's money.
I think it's gonna be in concert with though. I think they're gonna keep.
Well,
I may be speaking.
we're gonna have to make that
I was
determination.
gonna ask that question of Dave and Derek, what the process is. If we put this money into the budget, do we have another pass as a board at, approving it or not approving it?
Well, we already discussed that at the board level somewhat, but we didn't really discuss any concrete action beyond the initial inquiry. So as far as the full, I mean, money aside, as far as the actions of a full-blown survey, I would think, yeah, the futurists would need to come back to the board.
every
And-
expense done is gonna be approved by the board in a treasurer's report. So
Well, wait a minute, the treasurer's report is something we get after the expenses.
Exactly. It's
No.
in advance to get a
Incurred.
report. Say these are our.
only
intents.
operational expenses. We hold the checks and we don't send them until the board approves.
All right,
That's, we worked that with the auditors, yeah.
but what if they tell the engineer to go out and do his engineering, and he comes back and sends a bill for 13,600, et cetera? And we say, well, we don't like that.
Yeah, we're giving the Futurist Committee approval to spend that money.
John, Michelle, I think that the board can set up the process and inform the Futures Committee that as you identify these specific steps before you commit to them, bring it to the board to give a report, and that way you can give it before any check or any commitment to a contractor or a professional engaged, that you can say, okay, that makes sense. Go ahead and.
It was a good suggestion. Can we do it, Derek?
Do whatever you want.
It would be,
No, I mean,
it would be
to be fair, when we
every
talked
other
about this.
ABC.
I can't
Typically-
do whatever I want.
No,
Well-
but every ABC typically has their budget and that budget limit they're allowed to spend up to. So
Okay.
that's past practice.
That's, yeah.
Now,
And are we making their budget $13,000, or are we leaving it at the 2 or 3 that?
You know, most of the other ABCs are 3,000 or less.
Yeah.
but this was a very specific project that was built into that budget based on the feedback we got from the board at another public meeting earlier this year that expressed interest in doing something like that.
We
So-
were interested, but we didn't have the number at that time.
Yeah, their request was
And then-
20. It was
Well, in order to
dropped
get the number, this is the
15.
number to get the number, essentially.
It started at 20, it was dropped to 15, and then we reduced
Yeah,
all
right.
ABCs
I
by an
remember that.
additional $2,000.
The back of the envelope estimate for the whole project was over $100,000. And it's something like 40 homes in there, and we're gonna spend $100,000 on a bridge.
Oh, no,
no.
40 homes where?
No, 300.
Well, 300 in there, but in that neighborhood, where people
The idiot
actually
neighborhood.
walk, that's a cul-de-sac.
Well, I think with direction from the board to the members of the Futures Committee, and through the staff, that this would be vetted each step along the way before they commit to it. I just
That's
think
all I
would be
wanna
a
hear.
process. Yeah, I mean, that's the way if I was sitting on the board, I'd want to see that in advance before
Well,
they
you're on the
committed.
board now. Do you want to see that now?
Oh, yeah, I'd like to see that in place for next year.
I would, would you? How
I don't
you
want
guys
to,
feel?
I don't want to see any board, any one of our ABCs have a budget that is that much money of other people's money.
Well, that they're autonomous. with.
That's a
Yeah.
lot of money for two people to be responsible for just allocating for something. That has to be very distinctly disseminated to the Futures Committee. I'm not in favor of them having that much money at their disposal. I would have to say, I want to see it brought down in line with the other ABCs. And anything over that, they can come and ask for it.
Would
Or
it
you
be,
could
would it be
put-
possible to take this out
And
put
put
it
it
in-
in
and
engineering.
put it in
Clearly, I was
engineering
gonna see
Then-
that.
then
and
it's
just reduce
fine.
their budget
That
to,
would be a good way to do
Yeah,
it. David.
just
that
take
That's
has to-
fine.
move it
has
in
to come back
engineering and
here
not make it part of their budget.
Yeah.
Because
that would- that may
because it's
give
for a
some
very
comfort.
specific.
Yeah, it
project.
has to be,
Yeah.
it's
Dave,
earmarked
Dave,
for a specific
check and
project.
balance.
Is that possible?
It's just a
Okay.
reallocation. of the
Okay,
existing
well
dollars.
then, we're all
I'm okay with,
okay with
I'm
that?
okay
I
with
think
it,
that's a
Tony,
smart plan.
if it comes down
All right.
to the
Let's
other
do that,
ABCs.
please. I don't think we need a motion for that or anything.
No,
Okay, what else is in the budget that we want to point out, Dave?
Other than the general fund, I'd like to point out some of the other funds and changes in the capital plan. So,
are you gonna be able to tell us what page that is?
yes, number 16.
Thank you.
By the way, thanks for putting numbers on the pages.
Yeah,
That is-
You got
very
it.
helpful.
That's why
Great.
Michelle asked. What the?
That's right.
Yeah,
All right, so we're into the next. packet.
capital improvement. Perfect.
So the predominant changes here,
Is this the right one, Dave?
Yep. I did minor changes to the state liquid fuels
Yeah.
fund, the capital reserve fund. Updated per the changes that you see in the capital plan here. So the big one is $400,000 in Paoli Pike Trail, which were discussed in prior meetings, to continue with an alternate route plan B, whether that's extending that up, past CTTI. We don't have an exact,
Right,
cost
right.
estimate or plan other than that at this point. So putting that in for 2024. The other big one is, we've got some feedback since we put in a PO for the Gap Vac truck, the vacuum truck that Mark and Public Works can use. I put all of that into 2024 because some of it may come in very early 24, it may come in 23, it may come in 25. They usually do a chassis and the body separately. So for ease of approval, I wanted to have it all in a single line item for approval from the board. Other than that, that was the major changes in the capital plan. I did smooth out a little bit of the Parks and Rec. Instead of a lump sum in 2028, putting about another $50,000 away for assuming an increased cost versus what's already scheduled to be put away for redoing the playground area, the surfacing.
Dave,
and-
can I point out here that you and I
Yes.
talked and I talked with Jason as well. There are so many people who use our park system, so I asked if there was a chance that we could maybe put up a QR code so people can scan to maybe help offset some of the park expenses for some of our park programs so that it can help with deferring some of the cost for some of our underprivileged, underserved youth in particular, or adults, whomever might need the services and can't necessarily afford the program. That would be something that would be a QR code that would be a donation to the Friends of East Goshen Township. And so we talked about that, and I'm hopeful that they talked about it at the meeting,
Mhm.
And I don't know how it was received.
Pretty well, I believe.
Okay,
I'm talking with Jason.
good. Okay,
Jessica.
good one, Michelle.
yeah.
No, it's actually, we put it away in the capital reserve fund at the time.
Dave, I just have one flag here that I was thinking of on page 16, back to what we were originally on for the capital improvement program summary.
Yep.
I see for the Milltown Dam, we don't have anything projected for 26, 27, 28. I know it's sort of in the staff's hands right now in regards to what we're gonna, and the new board next year and what we're gonna try and plan for that. Do you think it's worth, Alex, we were gonna use the remaining bond fund money for that? Is what we originally,
That's the 175 in 20,
we have 150 in 2025.
that would be the remainder.
That's the remainder of
That's
that?
exhaust all of the bond money at that point.
Yeah, but that also,
I thought
that
we had like
also assumes that we've
400,000.
got a contingency for the dam and, that engineering is a little above the estimates that we have right now. So it could be higher than that.
I thought we had like 400,000 for left in our bond fund for the Milltown Dam.
No.
No.
So I feel like 150 is really not gonna do much down there.
No, I mean, we're gonna get 380,000 back for, from the Hershey's Mill Dam project. That hasn't come in yet,
And we don't have that allocated to go anywhere.
just back into the capital reserve fund,
So how much is that gonna be?
380,000.
And when do you think you might be seeing that?
I'm hoping by the end of the year.
Been some back and forth. They're reviewing it right now,
Yeah.
so.
And that's great, 380,000, but look at the funding source, the first one, capital reserve fund, and read the numbers across the way, they make $380,000 peanuts. How do we put money back into the capital reserve fund?
There's a transfer at the end of the year. You can see it on the expense line or,
From general?
The general fund is the mothership for the capital reserve fund.
Correct.
The capital reserve fund, other than grants, does not have a funding source other than through the general.
Okay.
we
that's what I
typically
thought.
put, yeah, I use my depreciation and fixed asset schedule for everything from the township building, everything on here that has to do with the general fund. We put away all of the machinery, all of the trucks, everything's on a schedule. So that it will be replaced because we're putting away enough every year. So it's between typically $400,000 to $500,000 a year is put into the fund.
Dave, back to the Milltown Dam here. Let's say hypothetically next year, we have an idea on what we want to do. And if we go back out, hypothetically rebid to Garnet, to Gannett Fleming and get sort of like a one price for everything type of approach. Would that be too late then at that point then to try and start budgeting, adding money into that 26, 27, 28? Or is it something that we need to make a decision now and like we should? start
No,
allocating?
no,
Okay.
you could certainly make a decision if there's a surplus next year. You could make a decision to have additional funds put in the cap reserve funds. We would also, if we're gonna go out and do, really not do it stage by stage, but have a cohesive plan from Gannett Fleming. We would look at a third party, take it out of Public Works hands, let them do their job, and then try and get grants for it. I mean, there's probably gonna be an LSA,
And I
there's a
think,
lot of things for trails and greenways, so.
but I think to add to that, we definitely need, whether we go out to bid again or we do it in-house, we need a plan, I mean, planning 101, we need a plan that is probably gonna be more scaled down than the enhancements we have. But we need that on paper to say, okay, this is the path forward. So that's kind of where it wants.
So is that 150, is that something that we could actually come up with a more cohesive plan at that point with that one part of what?
We would apply that to
Part of
part of a
that.
bigger scope, yeah. And I think the important thing for residents and the board to realize is that we would really want to move to do the work and pay them on engineering to get a plan and the scope of what the project
Yeah.
is that should happen. And are we willing, what's that price tag? Are we willing to pay that if we don't get any grants?
Right,
Then you go out for a grant. If you get it, great. If you don't, are you gonna pay it?
okay.
Do you think Gannett Fleming, and we've already spent a lot of money on engineering on that massive plan with the restrooms and everything like that. Would our engineering costs would they be less because they already sort of have a footprint and they could just start subtracting things, or does that not really apply when it comes to engineering?
That's tough to say.
That's a valid
It's tough to
question.
say, but I'm glad we do have some
We have a
built-in
starting-
engineering costs already in there, baked into the cake, so we don't have to start from scratch
Yeah.
or doing a new plan, so.
Yeah,
I
the
mean-
current cost is kind of if they did the full blown plan. So hopefully it wouldn't be much more than that, so it wouldn't be a lot more engineering out of pocket without talking to Eric and figuring out exactly what they need to do. Probably a lot of it is detail oriented rather than the big picture, because they've done so much extensive work over the last 6 years.
I was
Anyway.
concerned about that too, Cody, because it looks like it just kind of drops off.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's fair to the residents for them to see this big drop off. Because they'll take it as a possible non-commitment to moving forward. And that's really not what I want for that area. I want that to be completed. I want it to be ongoing. So I think that when we sit down and do the long-range plan in June, I think that we should have a good plan of spending a little bit more money in 26, 27, and 28 as well for that.
Thanks, Michelle.
Is that something?
No, I think
that-
that's fair. I think it gives the new supervisors time because
Yeah.
Barbara stood at my poll for an hour and she probably had 5 or 6 people come up
Right.
to her and talk about the dam. I said, watch how this person come up to the dam. First thing come up to, what are you gonna do about the dam? What are you gonna do about the dam? That's, yeah, so I think Michelle's right. If we don't see some type of progress.
We could ask Dave to put placeholder.
We could.
Could you do something like that without busting the budget there?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't gonna affect the 24 budget. This
No.
will affect the 25.
As long as we're just
forward.
thinking about it, you know, for the future years.
And I think that I think that we owe it to the residents over there to be,
Well, how much does the board wanna?
I think that we should have at least 50,000 in each year for 26, 27, and 28. And at least be, let them know that we're not done and that that's just a starting place.
I agree.
But I
think
do,
it's-
I do think in 2024, and I'll get to this later, but after the Milltown, after the work going on now is done, which should be the first half of 2024, we need to sit down at a public forum probably and have a square one conversation
Yeah.
of what do we want to see over there? Because the money we allocate means nothing if we don't have
No.
that
I agree.
square one
It
conversation.
means nothing.
And I would like if we had that plan ready once that portion's done in 2024, so residents don't see a delay of like, wow, you got this portion done, but when's the rest of it coming? Because that's not gonna go well.
I agree with that.
Future and
Yeah.
act on the future.
I agree with that.
The other
Thank
hand,
you.
we have to remember that there aren't that many people that live around there. There's a number of people, but not a lot.
Other than those, the sewer operating fund, I updated based on October year-to-date 2023. And had a meeting with West Goshen Sewer Authority and those partners. So I was able to update numbers there.
20?
I'm on 24.
24.
Moving along.
24, okay.
Updated the O&M costs, and the capital costs for West Goshen, East Goshen agreement. Updated the refuse fund as well, based on the year-to-date expenses in October. The municipal authority and the sewer capital reserve changed a little bit, based on the 5-year capital plan. The ARPA fund, it was updated based on the Hershey Mill Estate sewer rehab reduction in costs versus the actual original budget. So we've got about another $80,000 coming into ARPA. That'll give us about 150,000 to spend. I would propose, since we've done a lot of the sewer projects with ARPA, to stay with that theme. We have a lot of outstanding issues with the Chester Creek Interceptor, Supply Valley relining. There's 2 phases in and the $130,000 that we're putting away right now for sewer capital relining is half of what we probably need each time. So that would be my recommendation, but I would come and get a resolution from the board in 24, so that it's earmarked, because when I have to report at the end of March, as long as I have those funds obligated by the board to be spent, then we have the additional time to spend them.
Okay.
By the way, that we had a municipal authority meeting last night, and that $80,000 refund, if you will, reduction in the Hershey's Mill sewer project, is credit needs to go to, of course, the contractor has been a very good contractor, but Pannoni documented that they would use less material, it was all documented. There were less lateral connections, some less pipe, because they did a infield reroute, change in the route. But Pannoni did a really good job to document that, and there was no back and forth with the contractor. They recognized, and so that $80,000 was real money, and it Again, it was a very efficient and very effectively done project, and thank goodness for the ARPA funds.
Hey, Dave, quick, oh, go ahead, Michelle. Jeff,
No.
I have a question about the next page.
Sorry.
Dave, this is what I was texting you about, the firefighters' wage expense. It looks like the adopted budget was 1509631. It looks like it's about 222,000 more for the year-end projection. Do we know what?
Yeah, I ran numbers based on year-to-date October, projected out 2023 and put in the 3.25% increase for 24.
But why is there the 200? Is it because of the increase in coals? Why is it 222,000 over budget? Am I reading that wrong?
No, there's been a lot of new hires for part-time EMS. But the budget this is the pass-through budget. So basically everything that looks like a wage expense is offset by revenue received from Goshen Fire. So if their 23 is over budget in expense, then they're gonna end up giving us more in quarterly recharges that would pay for that expense. Thank you. That's pretty much the changes. I'm happy to answer any questions about any of the funds.
Well, I just want to before the questions, I do this every year, but I definitely want to thank Dave for his hard work. This is a year-round process, but particularly after when Labor Day hits, he is just like he's just consumed with this day in and day out, and I appreciate
Love
his
it.
hard work.
Yeah, but he loves it.
So
Oh,
that's something.
It's a work a day of his life.
But
Right, Dave?
thank
You know,
you,
work a day of
Dave.
your life.
that's right.
Thank you.
If you love it, you don't.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Dave.
it.
You bet.
And I want to remind everybody, including the board, that the motion on the table is just to authorize the advertisement. It's not,
And this is allowing us
Final on
to
the
pass it to the public for review and for comment.
anybody in the room want to make a comment?
Why not?
Step up, state your name.
Oh, I can. That's Ken Flanagan.
Mike, you got it right. Ken Flanagan, East Goshen. First, let me say that I'm impressed that we look at what's happened on the economy in the last 2 years. We've had, by the government reports, 20% plus inflation over the last 2-year period. This has actually hit the township operations harder because frankly, what's brought down the inflation recently is lowering in housing prices and other things that do not impact government operations. So you've been hit very, very hard. Mr. Davis, I want to commend you for keeping the expenses within control, that we've got a budget this year that's only about 1.5 or 1.8% higher. In a high inflation environment, that's extreme control. Very, very commendable. And Mr. Ware, I wouldn't have thought that you could balance this budget when I saw it a few weeks ago and brought it into balance. Although I will say you've been transparent in how you've done it, because there's a lot of cuts along the way. A lot of things had to go to bring this budget into balance. And it is in balance, but it is razor thin. One unexpected event, such as Thornberry or other expenses unanticipated, will set this off. So when I see the big changes, because Mr. Ware has been very transparent, here's the big items that have increased this year over the past ones. Emergency services stands out. Now that will take a lot of forensic investigation to see where all that went, and that takes time. But there's a contract, and that's what we're running with at the moment. The EMT services that the fire department has presented there, I understand that, and they are mission essential for us. If these services were gone, we would feel it immediately. So we're going to support that in there. What initially brought me today was number 5 on the expenses in there. ASPC, I get that one. It's somehow you'll find a way. I trust you'll find a way to work through that. But what initially brought me, what stood out as a line item, and you've addressed this, is the one by the Futurist Committee. Now, I have to say, I alerted to that immediately because folks who remember the Futurist Committee from 5 or so years ago, this left a very bad taste in our mouth. These were the folks and the residents blamed for the sidewalk to nowhere. Notice I didn't say trail. That the master plan that presents some of this looks like, what Fraser is becoming today. So there's a lot of skepticism that anything the Futurist Committee brings forward draws attention. And for folks who remember, they focus in that. Now you've addressed that clearly, that's not what I thought it was, and that's phenomenal. But there's some items on the budget that are deferrable for future years. If you don't do it this year, that could be deferred into the next year and onwards. And I think you're addressing that well. So what initially brought me here was, what's up with the Futurist Committee? What are they doing this time? Is this another sidewalk to nowhere aspects? Because as I go through the township and you hear it every time, you're going to hear it again when, in a year or so when you have to raise the taxing rate. Hopefully not. But if you were, first thing people are going to talk about is, hey, the sidewalk to nowhere. So that's what brought me here tonight. But I will say I'm very impressed with the way that you've handled this and you've gone through it, and trust that you'll keep it in balance. But that budget is tight. It is razor thin. So that's my comments.
And
Thank
I'll
you.
just, in fairness to
Thanks, Ken.
in fairness to the Futures Committee, that was not initially their project. That was in the 10-year comprehensive plan developed by the township and followed through by the board.
Yeah.
It's the Futures Committee. It wasn't their project. So they took some ownership and input into it, but it was a result of the comprehensive plan.
I trust in what you're saying, Mr. Shuey. Unfortunately, when people talk about it, they're the ones that get the hit. And it may be undeserved, which is as you're saying, but their involvement in things draws attention to, what's up this time? So, but thank you. And thank you for the work that you've all done on this. Things are tight and I trust that you'll continue to work them out.
Thanks.
Thank
Ken.
you very much. Are there any other comment? I think we have a motion to vote on. Call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes. Advertising.
And we want to try to vote on this on December 5th. That was, everybody agreed to that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we can get to that later because I have something to bring up on. But yes.
Okay, well,
Thanks for that, folks.
the next item is the agreement with Brandywine Valley SPCA.
Mr. Chairman, I move we authorize the township manager to sign the Brandywine SPCA contract for the 5-year term as outlined in the full animal protection services.
Thank you, Cody. Do I have a second?
Now second,
Okay, questions from the board or comments?
does anybody have any creative way to get around this? It looks like.
No, so
looks
just a
like we're
brief,
kinda-
yeah, brief comment, but David kind of hit the nail on the head. There's no competition. I don't want to say there's little competition. There is no competition. Myself and 30 other managers in this county have went back and forth with the SPCA since right after Labor Day. This is the terms they're given to pretty much everybody. And, we are in a take it or leave it scenario, with the SPCA right now. So they admittedly said they're being more stringent with this. In other words, if we did not have a contract with them pre-COVID, they still sometimes accepted, strays. Now they are getting trained to, starting January 1st, 2024, if you don't have a contract, they're not accepting strays, in your jurisdiction. So, David is correct. This is,
Any questions
Fortunate
from the
increase,
floor or comments from the floor?
and it has been budgeted in the budget you just voted to advertise.
This is about 155% over expenses that we saw this year. So I'm talking with our codes and ordinance officers to see what kind of things in the contract we can hone in on by looking at the invoices that we get from SPCA to try and identify where a lot of the animals are coming from and possibly target those areas and see why so many animals are coming from certain locations to hopefully reduce our expense.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, I'd like to call a question. All in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0.
Reluctant
you.
eye.
Reluctantly, I'll double.
Okay, so reluctant, two reluctant eyes.
Parentheses.
I don't think you get to vote that way.
I think we just did.
The next,
Well,
George said we could
the
do
next-
whatever we
here goes
want.
another
did
reluctant one
say
for
that.
you.
This is worse. This is worse.
That'll always be my answer.
John, I'll do it. Mr. Chairman, I move we pass resolution twenty
always
twenty-three
be mine.
13, authorizing the collection of certain municipal taxes by the Chester County Treasurer. And furthermore, move we authorize the township manager to sign the county services agreement as well as authorize the current tax collector, Melissa, to sign the affidavit for deputizing.
I second that.
All right, well, I have some questions on this one. The last bill, the SPCA thing went for $5,600 in the first year, blah, 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 which isn't a great deal of money. What are we spending on this collection agency, Dave?
It's about 12,000 a year.
12,000 a year to the county, right?
Yep.
And how much is this going to go up?
I believe it'll go up to about 25,000.
Whew. Well, I have to ask the question then. How hard would it be to take it back in-house?
Impossible for 2024.
For 24, we
Whoa, whoa,
can't,
whoa.
it would,
Impossible? There is no such thing.
well,
We
we've had,
took it out
we-
and we didn't cut any heads.
we don't have a software system to do it right now.
What, we bought you a software system a year ago.
Yeah,
Forgot
and
the
we didn't
module.
go for that module because of the savings in dollars that it would have cost.
That's, I remember that conversation.
Yeah, I remember that too, but the module wasn't $25,000.
We spend over 43,000 each year just for software. And the implementation of the project is considerably more than that for the implementation of that module.
But the module cost how much?
Let me go find it.
Approximate.
Yeah, I'd rather get a good number.
Yeah, John, I shared, John, I share some of your concern with it, but, I think the county, yeah, put it this way, we have two contracts in front of us. I'm very displeased with the Brandywine SPCA and what they've commandeered from us on that. The county has done a very good job with collection. They've documented what the additional costs have been. Just like any entity, they're not going to subsidize these services. I think they provided a good service. They have integrity. I think there are 20 or more municipalities in the county that are using their services as well. Another option is to have the tax collector get involved and start to collect the tax. I think that starts to get arcane and with the size of the township that it is, and it gets, there's a lot more oversight that's necessary from the staff even to an elected tax collector. So I don't think that's a good option.
It was $18,250.
Oh, 18,000. I was thinking.
And then
14.
every year it's about $6,000 for the software.
All
So.
right. So
okay.
the county's gonna charge us 25,000 and that's gonna be every year too, right?
This is a 2-year term, so we would have time to go out, get software and take it back.
I think the per bill is probably right now what they're proposing more in line with their actual expenses. I think the $1.75 was extremely low, and I think they finally realized that. The bigger issue I have was the notice was September 29th. Yeah, which gives you no time to plan for.
That's.
Yeah,
another
the
option.
ultimate price tag with, we were looking at basically an estimate of staff time and postage, paper costs at the time based on 2020, which it's much more than that now, was about $21,000.
Well, it's gotta be
a
at least
year.
30% more than it was then, now.
Right, so
so
if
you
you
add
think
your 35,000.
27, 30,000-ish, it's probably comparable.
Looks like the reasonable thing to do would be to approve the 2-year and then explore options going forward.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'll wait to see how you guys do it next year.
Hey, you're gonna be in the audience.
No, I'm not.
Gonna be on Zoom?
Nope.
All right. Any questions in the room? Nobody on Zoom. Let's call the question then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm
five to
going with that
nothing.
reluctant eye again.
Yeah.
Double
Reluctant
on
aye.
that,
I-
Triple.
that's an IR.
Jessica had a notation for that.
She can put it in parentheses.
All right, local share account.
Mr. Chair, I recommend we pass the two accompanying resolutions officially authorizing East Goshen Township to submit two applications for the local share account LSA program in the amounts outlined above for the aforementioned projects, which is the first is a $350,000 request with a $525,000 match. And then for our Goshen Fire Company, for their pumper, they're requesting $550,000. And then it's a 50% match. So
Oh, how can you turn that down?
This is the exact program, the LSA. we
Let's
use.
Is that a motion?
That was a motion. I'd like to get a second first.
Second.
Okay, somebody explain this to me. I'm slow.
So this was the exact, Mr. Chairman, we used this program before the LSA grant.
Mhm.
We went out for it, I think it was 2 years ago at this point. And we were able to, use it for the Hershey Mill sewer, state repair.
No, we were waiting on that and it came back and we got it for Bow Tree, 176,000 for Bow Tree.
Sorry. So this was utilized before for 4 different projects. I don't know off the top of my
Correct.
head exactly which ones they were, but we received a substantial amount of money before this program for those projects. And we are simply seeking more grant money from this program with the sewer rehabilitation project. That's televising, repair and relining Chester Creek Interceptor Phase 1 and 2 in Splee Valley. And then Goshen Fire Company apparatus, also known as the pumper, and that's again a $550,000 request. So all told, we're looking at trying to get a $900,000 here for necessary equipment and projects.
What kind of strings are gonna be attached to this? You know?
The match is the biggest. I mean, LSA really doesn't have as many strings as like a
Okay.
DSNR
So,
project.
so it's just, we're gonna have to
Yeah.
match whatever they
You don't
give
even
us.
have to match. We just
Yeah.
happen to be.
Oh, yeah. You get a
matching.
better
Oh, we're
It's up
opportunity.
to a
good.
million.
Yeah.
It's up
Better
to,
opportunity.
yeah, it's up to $1 million. It
Yeah.
seems like the sweet spot is right around 300,000 when I talked to Panoni. That's why you have to have, it has to be submitted by November 30th. So time is ticking and Grant has got me information for Goshen Fire Company for the pumper. So I'm filling that out. And then I'm working with Mike Ellis from Panoni for all of the information to put together the total project scope, which leaves us
Okay.
a little more flexibility if there are grant delays like there have been.
Okay,
So we wouldn't lose out. We could shift it to another section of that same project.
Bottom line is the sewer rehab is a project we have to do anyhow. and we're gonna-
Correct.
We're gonna have all of it, so
Oh,
why
yeah.
not, why not apply for the grant?
absolutely. Let's get some of it in grants, but I just wanna make sure that we're not gonna have to, do something special with our sewer system. For this grant, or, have to take the pumper truck to,
Well,
every parade.
that's
in
the
the area.
second question. That's a grant for grant.
Yeah.
And the first,
Okay.
okay. Questions about this from the board? Chris?
just one quick comment. I was on a Economic Development Association Zoom 3 weeks ago. And I called Grant and Dave about this is because a lot of townships have had success with getting funding for their fire department. What we need is just to support it. So thanks, Grant, for getting the information correct or so quickly, and Dave for being able to submit that. So thanks.
Great.
What's the source of these grant funds?
It's the local gaming.
All your gambling.
Keep it gambling.
Oh, that's right.
Gotta keep playing those slots. Gotta keep playing those slots.
Don't worry.
Hey, the last couple of years, they've had a lot of overruns, so.
I've not ever been
Wasn't
to a
my money.
casino.
I'll
Maybe
take it. It's
maybe
retired
next
gift.
year I'll go to.
Not my money.
casino.
Questions or comments from the floor? And I don't see anything on Zoom, so I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0 for both of them.
Let's hope that it comes to that.
No,
Well,
that was,
certainly
that was a
do.
wholeheartedly, yes, I'm in favor. Mr.
Grant.
Chairman, I would move to pass resolution 2023-13, supporting Operation Greenlight, an initiative to show support for sacrifices made by veterans and their families. This was something that Sean Ellsworth brought to the board about a month or so ago. And so some people were able to turn on their green lights in support of veterans and
So what's the,
I'll second that. I noticed our lobby was lit up green.
I
when
did that
came in.
today.
Oh,
Exactly
thank
for this.
okay,
nice.
oh,
Little
what's the
behind,
deal
but
with the green light though?
it's just showing support for veterans.
When?
Oh,
Month of November.
month of November.
The whole month,
The whole
okay,
month.
We're
okay.
just retroactively doing a little bit here. So,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I didn't want to ask that, but,
And we'll
Sure.
be, yeah, we'll be ready for next year.
all right, questions or comments from the board, from the floor? And on Zoom, none. I'll call the question then. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
Thanks to veterans for
Thank
the
you.
service.
And this is Mr. Wiegand's up next.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to authorize to give permission to Robert Wiggins to sell Christmas trees at 1301 Westchester Pike, Westchester.
Second.
Thank you for that. And thank you twice. That's where I usually buy my trees. So that's good. Questions or comments?
So known fact, Bob Wiggins is now a township supervisor in a different township.
What township?
Former? No. The cops?
The cops have been-
No, it would be.
Birmingham.
You just elected.
Oh, very good.
Interesting.
Good for him.
Oh, yeah, good for him.
Let's see what
Okay,
this
I'll
is.
call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, that's the new business, standing issues, projects. Our report, Derek.
Okay, what do we got here? Sorry, I don't have any time. Thank you. So Milltown Dam project, I actually, Mark and I met today out on site, had a construction meeting. They're out there and mobilized. So the project is underway. We got a construction schedule today. It looks like should I say this publicly? Okay. They're looking to, wrap this up by the end of April. So that's the schedule right
Oh,
now.
we're doomed.
So
We're doomed.
2024.
That would be great.
24.
April.
So, yeah, we are looking to wrap up, again, because we're just doing the dam work, we're looking to wrap up fairly soon here.
Dam work?
The dam work, yeah.
Yeah.
So that is, again, they're mobilized, they're starting, and, you're gonna see them down there.
Oh, good. I'm gonna.
That's great.
down, check
Mhm.
it
That's
out.
great.
Can we just get it done before the April primary so all my neighbors are happy when they come vote?
Talk to you offline.
Be good enough
Um,
for April.
Milltown Pocket Park, that is complete
Nice.
Nice.
and, installed and probably being enjoyed.
It's
I hope they
the,
will.
what did we name that?
I'm going with that.
We named it, I still have to get a resolution, I'm
Yeah.
hoping for December
Captain
5th.
School.
Yeah, I think you
Goshen
guys were
Heights?
okay with the Milltown School Park.
Well,
or-
it's actually it's actually the site of Goshen Heights Elementary. It wasn't actually Milltown Elementary.
Okay,
Talk to Jason.
Well, you guys.
yeah,
think
I thought it
let's
was,
talk to
I thought it
Jason.
was decided to find the Milltown School Park.
Well,
but-
we said whatever that elementary school
we-
was.
Okay.
like-
We will have an opening for that park.
Yeah, I'll talk to Jason and massage that a little bit, but yeah, it's done and being enjoyed as we speak. Well, maybe not as we
Excellent.
speak, because it's dark out, but
Yeah, good.
All right. Poetry.
so Bowtree, we are also mobilized there and it is underway and the dewatering is going on. So if you go down there, you'll see that and, the dewatering should be through the end of the year, and I don't know when the construction's supposed to wrap up at this point, but probably gonna be similar to the Milltown project as far as timeline.
Good, good, active and underway.
Mhm.
Oh,
Active
yeah.
and
I
underway.
was down
Good
there.
project.
For you?
They've done a lot there,
Oh, good.
and it's a lot of our public works guys.
Yeah, oh,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. I knew they'd done some prep for a while, but I haven't been down there since they started to, actually dredge it.
That's excellent. All right, any other matter? Anybody?
Yes, I
Um,
do. What
yeah.
what do you want?
That's what I was gonna bring
I
up
was
later.
not. What did
Oh.
you, I was gonna bring up something
yeah.
else, but what?
Yes, recycled photos and that grant for, delivered as we speak this week.
I got mine already.
You did.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's in the garage.
Yeah, I got mine already and I sent it back and thank you for making that happen. It was seamless. There was a truck dropping off and there was a truck behind it picking up. And we never got a letter.
We sent them.
I believe you did,
Yeah.
but I never got
Did
a
anybody
letter.
else not get a
I
letter?
don't know that I got a letter on that.
You got the letter?
Did you?
And most people. in
Did
the
you
precinct
get-
did.
You got a letter?
Okay,
You
maybe
got
it's possible, how.
That happens.
That's weird.
Stuff
see East Goshen,
happens.
they usually
But
open
my
it.
neighbors are very happy.
When, Michelle, I'm glad you brought that up, when when you mentioned that they had a truck behind to take the old containers.
Oh, no, the new container.
If you didn't.
I didn't want the
You
new
didn't want one.
container.
If you didn't.
I see,
I
So-
okay.
I took it, I made a go.
So the existing recycling
Wheels are
containers, what can we do with those?
Yeah.
Oh,
What do
well,
we do with those?
I know they're not recyclable.
You have to repurpose them. So for instance, the small
I'll
bins,
do the
people are
joke
using
here.
them, they're cleaning them out and using them for, pet food containers, those kinds of things. Putting them in their
Kindling.
garden sheds and,
Kindling,
yeah,
we use them in
doing
the
plantings
garage.
in them and things like that. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, they're
I
not.
heard some
reusable.
people, I heard some people cut them up and put them in trash.
Put them in
Yeah,
trash bag
yeah.
and throw them out that way.
Cause we have a big toter. We have a toter like the one we're getting.
Yeah.
But this will have East Goshen.
The one
and I
you're
was just
getting
thinking-
has nicer wheels.
Well, and it's new. This one that
Mhm.
we have is
Yeah.
probably 15 years
All
old.
right.
Well, we
Yeah,
are
I know what-
switching those out. We are switching those out if people don't want their old ones. So
Yeah.
We were trying to find a way to kind of,
Collect them.
yeah.
All right, so I'll just pay attention and see
Interesting.
down the road.
This isn't going, they can contact
I know.
Yeah, I'd like the new one, but I don't know what to do with the old one. Okay,
And I don't know.
all right. Thanks for that update.
Yep. So I just wanted to discuss, since we were talking earlier, the schedule. We technically were scheduled for November 28th, but I was gonna recommend that we do not have that meeting because I don't have anything pressing, and we were gonna meet December 5th anyway, which is the next week. So
I'm fine with
it
that.
didn't look like we needed to meet the November 28th unless the board had a different idea on that.
When do we have to vote on the budget, final
fifth.
budget?
Sounds like December 5th is when
December 5th?
everybody,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Mark, December 5th? for the
Yeah,
budget?
December 5th.
Yeah.
So,
Alright.
so we'll have the December 5th meetings. We will not have the November 28th meeting.
Okay.
My other question to the board was, I'm reading between the lines here, but is December 5th our last meeting of the year? Is that why we were,
Depends what you got, what you can.
Is there anything that's gonna come up
Will
with?
be 19th.
we have a conditional use hearing December 5th. I don't know as far as if that would get continued or not. I guess it can get continued into the new year. if
Can
you
we-
guys didn't make a dec- If you
can-
guys didn't make a
Can we
decision,
make that decision on December 5th?
could, I think.
If we're gonna have a meeting on the 28th.
No. If could they make the conditional use? That's true. Yes.
Yeah, but it's gonna be a new board as well.
Well, we could get consent from the applicant to get input from the new board, I believe, right?
Okay.
Mark? Yeah,
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
It's just that if we wanted to have conditions, it would be slightly more difficult. I mean, you can develop conditions based on the testimony that's presented at the hearing. So we can talk about.
yeah, I mean, you guys might want the 45 days anyway, so I mean, it's probably not a good idea just to hold a December 19th meeting just for that.
No,
Besides the budget, I don't have anything pressing off the top of my head that I can think of.
okay.
Okay.
This conditional use is on the 5 lot, over on Reservoir.
On
Road.
Reservoir Road, yeah.
Barn, the existing,
So are
outbuilding.
we gonna leave the December 19th meeting on the books for right now,
You can do that.
or do you wanna take it away?
I'm gonna say it again. You guys can do whatever you want.
So,
Let's make that decision on December 5th.
Okay, we can do that.
okay,
We'll push it off. and-
I heard John's buying a steak dinner for David and Mike's last meeting, so thanks a lot, John.
Yeah. McDonald's.
one of those round steaks, huh? I wanted to ask a housekeeping question. So I know that Benoni has this requirement for escrow, and the finance department has to manage the escrow, and so we're basically the Bank of Benoni for various projects.
Well, I think it's more accurate to say we're the bank of these developers that are doing the projects.
Yes,
sort
but,
of-
but it's because Benoni requires the escrow, and they require us to collect the escrow.
We actually require.
No,
the
we
escrow.
require.
We
the
require the escrow, but, oh, so they are just making us deal with it then? Is there any chance that we can, is there any way we can discuss terms with them before the new year?
Why?
So that we don't have to maintain the escrow accounts? Is there any way?
I mean, I've never heard of an engineering firm
Okay.
maintaining an escrow account for
Okay.
their clients. I mean, I can see if there's
Okay.
any. Dave and I had to have conversations over the last few years of, is there an easier, simpler way to do this where we're not as involved in
Yeah.
handling these finances? I haven't come up with any
Can we collect the
answer?
interest?
Nope, it's an escrow.
Get rid of it then.
But is there any way we can figure out, like, is there a better way?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know that we used to do this prior to Mark Gordon doing it. I don't know the genesis of it, how it happened. Talking with Dwayne, I guess a lot of other townships do it for contractors, developers. It does cost a decent amount of staff time, probably about $300 a month at least.
Yeah,
I mean, technically it's for our benefit, like we're getting the
Okay.
money to pay for our employees' time
Okay,
through this escrow.
okay.
But it is, yeah, it is a pain.
somebody's
sometimes.
got to hold the escrow.
Yeah.
And if you let the lawyers hold it, then any,
Mhm.
any argument that comes up, ask Mark, they hold on to it. Because they're afraid of getting, ethical complaints and all the rest of it.
Okay. I
So
just
we're
wanted to
probably
know.
better, unless there's another place.
No, I mean, the administration of it is what is the headache because we have to track it all. We have to request more funds to be put in.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
doing the deposits, we're doing the reconciliations, we're writing the checks for them. And Benoni gets paid immediately, whereas we wait until the escrow comes back and then we get paid.
But we do get paid.
Yes.
They have to refresh the escrow. I mean, when I was in
Can't
East
argue with
Bradford,
that.
it took a lot of time, but it was a process. So I
I was
appreciate how much.
trying to
effort,
eat-
but
I was just trying to
having
ease up the,
control over it, I think is.
Yeah, Kelly does a good job.
Um,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Seconded?
yeah,
Oh,
public-
all in favor?
comment.
Oh, we didn't get well, okay. We'll open it back up for the public to comment.
No
Do any of the
comments.
three of you want to make a comment?
Yeah.
All right, then we are adjourned.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you very